It's good morning, Drew Rebar, Auditing Reno 911. I appreciate everybody that watches my channel. Want to apologize, I haven't been posting a lot of new videos lately or making a lot of new videos. Just so everybody knows, YouTube demonetized me after the Washoe County librarians complained to them, and that was right after I filed a federal lawsuit. But I'll do another video on that another time. So anyways, this morning I've got retired Sheriff Stewart Handte out of Mineral County. He also used to work for the Nevada Highway Patrol. Man's had a very interesting life. He knows a lot about what's going on in government, and well, I'll let him tell part of his story. He's going to expose some corruption today for us. So let me bring Mr. Handte on here, and here he is. And
good morning, Drew.
Good morning, Stewart. I'll let you go ahead and tell your story about what corruption you want to expose today.
Well, once again, I appreciate your time and efforts in doing what you've been doing, because it's very important to alert the people, especially in the northern Nevada area of Washoe County and Reno, Nevada, just how bad things are there. To set a foundational stage, my parents and I moved to Reno in 1974. My mom's third or fourth cousins were the Smith brothers that owned Harold's Club Casino in downtown Reno. We had moved from Vermont to Reno because the economic status of Vermont was very bad, and the economy in Reno was booming. And my parents both got jobs real quick after we moved here. It was the week before Thanksgiving, 1974. So my parents eventually got long-standing career jobs here. My mom was a nurse. She'd been a nurse in Vermont. And my dad had foundational experience in law enforcement. He was an auxiliary member of the Vermont State Police, and so he got a job as Washoe County Deputy Sheriff, and eventually became worked for Employment Security Division of the State of Nevada. My mom retired as a nurse. My dad retired from there. Both are deceased now. So I bring foundational experience because I got into law enforcement back in 1984 and did 30 years in the profession. During that time, I became a state and federal whistleblower against my own department. And I was basically threatened with my career of all days, 9/11/2001, by then Richard Kirkland, the former chief of police and sheriff of Washoe County. And then he was the director of the Department of Public Safety, which the Nevada Highway Patrol was underneath. So a lot of things have come across my plate. I'm sad to say that in every law enforcement position that I've had, which is state trooper, adult probation officer with the Reno Sparks Indian Colony, a deputy sheriff of the Story County Sheriff's Office, two tribal chiefs of police, one with the Reno Sparks Indian Colony, and one with the Yamba Indian Reservation. And as you mentioned at the beginning, I was the sheriff of Mineral County for a short period of time. The sad statement I want to make is that I've encountered corruption in every law enforcement capacity that I've served in. And that's significant because people always equate law enforcement with being, the good guys, the guys with the white hats, the guys that do the right things. Unfortunately, as we're seeing unfold across this country in recent years and months, law enforcement is not the profession that it was once thought to be. It is full of corruption. It's full of bad cops. There are bad attorneys out there, including district attorneys like Christopher Hicks and city attorneys like Carl Hall, both that I know from Reno. I'm mentioning their names because we're going to talk a little bit about Reno. And also judges. The entire Second Judicial District Court of Reno, Nevada is invalid because none of them have bonds required by law, and none of them have valid oaths of office or commissions as recorded and required by law. But yet they continue to operate in whatever perceived status that they have, which is scary because every ruling that comes out of that court by every single judge is invalid. And that would really kind of start to set the tone for a class action lawsuit if people decided to take up that charge. But I want to talk today about an incident that took place back in May of 2024 involving senior federal judge Larry Hicks out of the Federal District Court of Nevada. He was taken killed in a crosswalk. Now, Larry Hicks was the former district attorney of Washoe County, and there is a little group of people that belong to that club that are very tight. That club encumbers a lot of people. Mills Lane was one of them. Dick Gamick was one of them. Cal Dunlap was one of them. All these people belong to this very elite club, and I'm putting quotation marks around that because that's what it is. It's like a skull and crossbones club. So we hear this big accident that happens on May 29th, 2024, in broad daylight, downtown Reno, in front of the federal courthouse where Larry Hicks worked. He was crossing in a marked crosswalk at California and Virginia. This blows up because we have a senior federal judge hit and killed in a crosswalk, and he is the father of now current District Attorney Christopher Hicks. And then all this stuff comes out. The driver's cooperating, remained at the scene, and then nothing. Nothing. Crickets. Months go by. Well, what happened? Who's at fault? What happened here? And the local media, which is bought and paid for, and I'm specifically mentioning them, KRNMV, KOLO, KTVN, which I always thought were decent media outlets, are not. They don't report the news. They don't report the truths of the news, and they're not investigative journalists. They're has-beens. And they're the ones who basically labeled myself and my friend and former co-defendant Roger Hilligus as criminals. There's civil action coming for that, trust me. So all these media outlets in Reno were not reporting. You know, everybody wants to know what happened. Did he run out in front of traffic? Did he get mowed down? Blah, blah, blah. And just months go by and nothing is heard. And then all of a sudden, out of left field, on April 21st of this year, we find out that the driver of this car, this Christopher McDougall, who has a lengthy driving record of traffic infractions, basically is pleading out to a charge. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. Last we heard his driver's cooperating. He remained at the scene. Was he under the influence of alcohol? Apparently not. Did anything else take place that the public should be made aware of? Because again, we can take the names out of it. Here is a person in a marked crosswalk that gets mowed down by a car. Who's at fault? And nobody said anything. I even talked to a local reporter out of Las Vegas who reached out to me, and somehow she got my number and said that she was interested in finding out more information. I go, well, good luck, because the Reno Police Department, which is corrupt, I'll say that, they're corrupt. You want to sue me? Go ahead. I don't care. You're corrupt, folks. Don't trust Reno Police Department. Do not trust the Ross County Sheriff's Office, and don't trust Sparks PD. All these law enforcement entities that are supposed to be there to serve and protect are quite the opposite. They're not upstanding law enforcement agencies anymore. They used to be, but they're not anymore. So this Las Vegas reporter that I talked, and I said, well, you got a better inroad than I did, because I've reached out in emails and questioning stuff, and nobody ever responds back to me, which is typical, because they just, like their ostriches, they bury their heads in the sand and they just don't want to comment. And especially the local media of Reno. I mean, again, we're talking about someone of importance in that community, and nothing. So she reaches out, she gets back to me, she goes, well, nobody's saying anything. Excuse me. She says, I tried to talk to somebody at the Reno Police Department, and nobody would talk to me. So I'm going back on my experience as a law enforcement officer, where I handled thousands of traffic accidents, some of which were fatalities, and a few of which, because auto pedestrian accidents are not, back then, were not prevalent. They're a very rare situation. But you've got mitigating factors. Do you have a person? What was it? Was a person in a crosswalk? Now we know the answer. Yes, this person was in a crosswalk. Did this person get hit by a vehicle? Yes, that's how he died. What type of vehicle? It was a large vehicle, lifted Ford Excursion. What was the driver's answers to why this happened? I didn't see him. He was in my blind spot. Well, okay. I think everybody is cognizant of the fact that every vehicle manufactured out there, unless you have a complete glass vehicle, has blind spots, okay? So you should know that when you're operating your vehicle. And this is a rule of thumb for everybody out there. Know your vehicle when you put that key in the ignition and start it up, how this vehicle operates, okay? If you have a sports car, it operates a lot different than a pickup truck, which operates a lot different than a tractor trailer, which operates a lot different than a tank, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I'm using those type of analogies to say, hey, when you get into a car, do you know the capabilities of that vehicle? Do you know how it operates? Is it four-wheel drive, all-wheel drive, rear-wheel drive? I mean, we can go into all the variables here, and I'm just throwing out this information for the fact that if you get into a car, you should know what your capabilities are to operate that vehicle, as well as the capabilities of that vehicle. Is it mechanically sound? Can it pass a safety inspection if need be? Are the tires properly inflated? The transmission, the engine, all that stuff. Every time you get in your car, you should know that that vehicle is going to take you from point A to point B, excuse me, safely. Now, you and I both know, Drew, you're not going to toss the keys to a race car to a 16-year-old kid and say, hey, take this for a run around the block. You're not going to do that, because you know in your mind that the capabilities of that 16-year-old kid, should be nowhere near a race car. You have to have professional training to drive that, and that takes years. Just like in law enforcement, we were trained every year for high-speed EVOC driving, and that's because we're out there driving marked patrol units, and we're supposed to respond to critical incidents with lights and sirens. Lights and sirens don't give you anything except vehicles are supposed to yield to you, but you can't go blowing through intersections. You're supposed to slow down, check both ways or all four ways before you proceed through that intersection, even with lights and sirens. Same thing with high-speed vehicle pursuits. Are you going to chase this guy until second day after hell freezes over? No. You're going to realize at one point in time, is this chase worth the risk to this people's safety? So I say this stuff because this person driving this lifted Ford Excursion should have known about his blind spots. Now, apparently, from what I'm hearing, he was heading to pick up his children from school. I used to live in Reno for almost 50 years. I don't know of any schools in that area. You know, I'm leading this stuff up to the things that make you go, atmosphere. I've heard prior to today's podcast that the impact caused Judge Hicks to fly 20 feet in the air, and that his body was positioned 80 feet away from the final resting position of the vehicle after it struck him. That's speed. That is speed, despite the fact how big the vehicle is. That still is speed. There's speed computations involved. There's all sorts of mathematical formulas to determine things at an accident investigation. I was a technical accident investigator for Nevada Highway Patrol, so every time we've had serious injury accidents or fatality accidents, we'd have to use mathematical formulas to determine speed off marks. There's all sorts of mitigating factors, the coefficient of friction on roadways, time of day, time of evening, everything factors into when you're investigating an accident. But for the Reno Police Department and the local media to go blank and crickets on this, it's more than interesting. It's concerning. And it's concerning because nobody has ever disputed the fact that this man was hit and killed in a crosswalk by a vehicle. But why wasn't this driver arrested on the spot? You have probable cause, okay? That was determined right there at the scene. You're going to have witness that says, oh, Judge Hicks was in a crosswalk. He said, I didn't see him. He was in my blind spot. You've already got an admission by the driver saying, pretty much admitting fault, and you already have information there at the scene showing that Judge Hicks was in a crosswalk. That means the driver yields that person in the crosswalk. This doesn't matter if the don't walk sign's on. Once that person's in the crosswalk, they have the right of way, period. End of story. Just like a car entering an intersection. Once that car is established position in an intersection, despite the fact that light has gone from yellow to red, that car still has that response or that legal authority to be in the intersection to try and get out of the intersection. So everybody else has to yield to that vehicle. That's under Nevada law. Now, again, I said this stuff earlier about this body being launched 20 feet in the air. Nobody said anything about that specifics. The police report, which is public information, has never been brought forth. Nobody's asked for it. Why? There's a lot of why questions that haven't been answered. And like I said, I wrote down some stuff this morning, and I'm more than inquisitive. I've asked questions before. Nobody says a word. This guy's got a lengthy driving record, 9 tickets on file. Okay, that's not a good driving record. And so here's the final coup de grace. Nobody says nothing about anything for almost a year. And all of a sudden, next thing you know, he's in court pleading guilty to a lesser charge of involuntary manslaughter. Although they say he was charged. But Why wasn't that ever told in the public media that he was charged? Why wasn't he arrested at scene? They say they did a roadside sobriety test. They say they took him to the hospital and did a blood draw. Well, that's not something that just should have been covered up, and it was covered up by the Reno Police Department and local media, because I'm sure they knew, but they didn't want to say nothing because they were told not to, probably.
Well, have you ever heard of a? Let me ask a question real quick. Have you ever heard of a guy getting 30 days for killing somebody?
That's absurd.
30 days.
I mean, this is so absurd. It warrants the public to say, so what's the price of saying a guy mowing down a mother and a baby in a stroller? Is that more days in jail? More fine? 30 days in jail, $1,140 fine, 200 hours community service, a victim impact panel, and traffic school for killing with intent, because you can't charge someone with felony reckless driving because you have to show intent. That is part of the reckless driving statute. You have to show willful and wanton disregard. He willfully and wantedly disregarded the safety of Judge Larry Hicks by killing him in a crosswalk. Okay, I'm going to use a case that I did years ago when I was a state trooper of the Highway Patrol. This is the same type of scenario, only involved two vehicles, not an auto pedestrian. A guy by the name of Thomas Beach was heading to work at Jones West Ford. He lived up in the Virginia City Highlands in Story County, and he's coming down the grade. A lady by the name of Elaine Brown, school teacher for Story County, was heading up the grade to go teach school at the Virginia City High School. Mr. Beach passed over a double yellow line because he was late to work, and he's running late to work. He wanted to get to work, and he hit Elaine Brown's Toyota Camry coming up the hill head on. He was driving a lifted Ford truck, kind of an eerie coincidence here with that lifted Ford Excursion with Mr. McDougal. Knocked Elaine Brown's vehicle back up onto the guardrail and substantial damage to both vehicles. I got on scene, dispatched to it. It's a serious injury accident. I talked to Elaine Brown, and she was care flighted. Mr. Beach was transported by ground ambulance to Washoe Med at the time, now renowned. I get to the hospital to talk to Elaine Brown because I talked to her at the scene. Unfortunately, Elaine Brown passed away because she had a transected aorta and she bled out. By the time they got her on the operating table, it was too late. So there I was. I had a now traffic fatality involving willful and wanton disregard, passing over a double yellow line, just like mowing someone down in a crosswalk. And so after I found out that very tragic information about this beloved school teacher from Story County, I went into Mr. Beach's room and I asked him, how are you doing? And he said, fine. He goes, how's the lady that I hit? And I said, I don't have good news for you. She's dead. And I need you to get out of bed because you're under arrest. That's what should have happened to Mr. McDougal. I placed Mr. Beach under arrest for felony reckless driving, involuntary manslaughter, passing over a double yellow, and left of center. Those are the charges I put on Mr. Beach. He did longer than 30 days in jail. I believe he did some prison time, if memory serves me correctly. His fines were substantial. The only difference with that accident versus the one with Judge Hicks is you have two vehicles versus the vehicle and the pedestrian. I don't know anybody out there that would think that this fine fits the crime. Okay, and then you have Christopher Hicks, who says the family was okay with this guy only serving 10 days in jail. What kind of logic is that? He makes the poor, oh, well, we're not going to have any more time with the family, and this is the first Easter without him. I get it. If that would have been my father, I would have been so distraught. I want justice. I want this guy to serve time in prison. He murdered my father with a vehicle. He knew that my father was in a crosswalk and mowed him down. And again, we don't know anything about the actual speed computations, but again, fourth and fifth hand information from people who knew someone who told me, hey, this guy got launched 20 feet in the air. Hey, his body landed 80 feet away from where the vehicle stopped. We don't know that because Reno Police Department has been very secretive and covert about releasing the information. Why? Why is the Reno Police Department kept all this stuff? Why is all this information kept sequestered up until April 21st, when all of a sudden, presto changeo, KRNEV, KRNEV says, oh, here he is. He's in court and he's pleading to a charge and blah, blah, blah. I go, why was this guy arrested on the scene? you have probable cause. It doesn't make any sense, Drew. And a lot of things
No.
don't make any sense in that town anymore about how crime is being treated there, which is out of control and rampant. That's why I don't live there anymore for, well, one of many reasons.
So I got a question from a guy. He wants to know, do you know a guy named Eric Watts?
I do not know a guy by the name of Eric Watts.
Oh, okay. That's Lawrence Accountability. He's
About the reliability of current Sheriff Bill Ferguson. Bill Ferguson is corrupt. Okay? Bill Ferguson is, there's a lot of stuff about Bill Ferguson. I'm sorry that I didn't get to serve the citizens of Mineral County longer than I did. My election was tampered with, and the Attorney General at the time, Adam Laxalt, who's one of the good old boys club, refused to investigate it. Had that happened and people had realized that Randy Adams, undersheriff, even though he lied to people about this, was going to be Bill Ferguson, I would have probably stayed on as sheriff in that county, and I would have done a long time there because I really love doing that job. But unfortunately, that's water under the bridge. Billy Ferguson is no good. He's the guy that got his car stolen by a prisoner, and they had to shoot and kill the guy after he stole his highway patrol cruiser years ago. But Billy Ferguson has done some really bad stuff. Don't take my word for it. Google Eyes Like Diamonds on YouTube, where he arrests someone for filming somebody there when he was trying to find drugs in a vehicle, which there was no drugs in the vehicle. Eyes Like Diamonds was a rock band that had stopped in Hawthorne, and Bill Ferguson decided to jack them up. So I'm sorry to tell the truth here, but I'm going to tell the truth. I'm going to keep telling the truth because the truth needs to be told. So I don't know this gentleman you said, Watts. I don't know him. So I don't know if there's any questions I can ask further on that. Folks, you got to start understanding that. And again, I'm coming from a time where I enjoyed being a law enforcement officer, where I treated people with respect. I knew the laws. I knew how they could be applied. When you slap the cuffs on somebody, that's a big, big responsibility. That's a Fourth Amendment violation if you're not doing it right. And you can be sued for that, and you can lose your job over that. So, every time you arrest someone, you should, cops out there these days, whether they do it or not, they should be cognizant of the fact that if you don't do it by the numbers, you're going to be in trouble. And I've stood up against corruption. I will continue to stand up against corruption. But, this whole scenario involving Judge Larry Hicks, it should make people shake their heads and go, what is going on here? How can the son of the father who was murdered be okay with 10 days in jail? And that's 30 days in jail. No, this guy who has a driving record that is atrocious mows down a beloved, respected judge and gets slapped on the wrist, if that, for doing that. Of course, there's going to be no more birthdays or Christmases or Thanksgivings or any type of special family. He's dead. He's gone. If that had been my father, I would have been beating the bandwagon and said, I want this guy to suffer the consequences of killing my dad. But that's not what happened here. And again, the local media refuses to report it. And the Reno Police Department is silent about the intangibles of the accident. Where's the report? Do yourselves a solid, Reno Police Department, and present the report to the public. It's public information. It's not secretive. I don't care if it was a CIA operative that was killed in a crosswalk. It's public information. It's an accident report. The public has access to that. Why was that given to the public? Why then, for almost a year, nothing said about what happened, what really happened here, except all of a sudden now we have all this information coming out and everybody's just to say, okay, well, it's the water under the bridge, time to go on. Nothing to see here, folks. Just move along, just move along, just move along. And people are going to ask me my opinion of what is behind all of this. And this is my opinion, and I'm basing it on a lot of things that some of which I won't go into because I'll save that for a different court environment. I believe this was a hit. So do a lot of other people. And I'm not going to mention the names because I'm not to put them at risk or safety. I believe Judge Hicks was taken out because one of two things. He knew too much and it was a liability, or he was about to say something about some of the corruption in Reno and he's a liability. I mean, there's no information out there to say Judge Hicks was demented. There's no information to say out there that he was losing his mental acuity. There's no information out there to say that he didn't know what he was doing anymore, and it was time for him to go, on to, to retire. Although there are people out there that deserve to retire because they no longer understand their official capacities and their positions. We've seen it in politics. We've seen it in legal parameters. That's my opinion. I think he was taken out. I think this was a hit, and it smacks of it because this guy got barely a slap on the wrist for mowing down a person in the crosswalk. I mean, my God, every person out there, a resident of Washington County, citizen of Reno, should wonder, well, if one of my family members gets hit in the crosswalk and gets killed, what's going to be the fine against the person that did that? I mean, do we start doing a chart, a graph chart? Like, well, if you hit a pregnant mother in an intersection, this is the fine. But if you hit an elderly person in an intersection, this is the fine. And this is it's a stupid analogy, and I'm just using that to be sarcastic. But my God, this is absurd. This is, like I said, this is insanity at its finest. And I don't know what else to say except what I just said. I can't see any other reason for what has taken place in terms of the actual implementation of the fines and the penalties against this Christopher McDougall. And then we have this Reno city attorney was the one who prosecuted the case. What prosecution was there involved? He pled guilty and the other charges were dropped. There's no prosecution there. There's no trial. There's no jury trial. There's no bench trial, which is in front of the judge. There's no prosecution. Why would you even involve a prosecutor? He's going to plead guilty. He already said that. He probably already admitted or said he was going to do that prior to this court date, which that's what probably would happen. So it's all flim flam. It's all, look over here, look over there, smoke and mirrors, blah, blah, blah. And by the people realize, the good people of Washington County and Reno, Nevada realize, like, what happened here? And by then, oh, no, let's go on to the next thing. There's something else coming up. Let's go on to the next thing. Don't worry about that. So water under the bridge. And that's what's been going on in this godforsaken city full of corruption and crime for decades now. It's becoming more and more prevalent. You don't have any government officials that do anything. Drew, you've seen what happens with your fights in the government officials. It's the power and the authority, and we run the show here, not you. Like Judge Barry Brezel said, hey, I run the show here that goes for today and forever, which is delusions of grandeur. Anybody that puts on a black robe, as far as I'm concerned, is they need to have a mental health evaluation, severe mental health evaluation. And you got judges out there that are all in it for the money and the power. They're not in there to fairness and impartiality in the justice system that is broken. They're just there to say, well, I can really screw this person's life, or take time to this person. They don't care about the laws. It's obvious. Time and time again, you've seen it, Drew. These judges, they don't care. They don't care what the laws say. They interpret the laws their own way. And maybe Judge Larry Hicks, like I said, I believe this was a hit.
Let me disclose something.
And if people want to say you're nuts, well, that's fine. That's your opinion that I'm nuts or I'm crazy or whatever.
Yeah. Are you there? Or are we losing you? I think we lost some audio there. I can't hear you. Can you hear me there? Let me see if I got something going here.
Understand
hang on a second.
Just how dirty. What's that?
Oh, we lost the audio for just a second. So we're back now. I can hear you again.
Okay. The public needs to understand that corruption is prevalent. You're seeing it going across the country. You're seeing these judges. I hope that's just the tip of the iceberg, because these people in power, positions of power and authority, think they can run the show. And they don't care what Drew Rebar thinks.
Let me put something out there for us with regards to Larry Hicks. Okay. So in my business, this is kind of what got me into recording the government and the corruption and all that stuff. So I own a towing company, and several years ago, the government put on a $25 administrative fee to pay some out-of-state billionaires $25 every time the cops called the tow trucks. And so I sued because they didn't use what's called the Administrative Procedures Act. There was no legislation to create this fee. There's no law to create the fee. There's no regulations. basically Sheriff Lombardo at the time, who's now governor, signed a contract with this out-of-state billionaire corporation to give them $25 to dispatch tow trucks. And so I filed a federal lawsuit, and Judge Larry Hicks was the judge on that, and he dismissed it.
Imagine that. They're all in cahoots with one another. There's phone calls. What you think you're getting stuff put forth? Like, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to file this complaint. I'm going to file this lawsuit. It's already been delineated. There's phone calls. There's backdoor meetings. There's stuff that the public's not made aware of. The same thing will happen with the case against me. We were guilty. We were guilty before we even brought in front of a judge. Your case was thrown out the door before you even the ink on your pen was, or the paper was dry. It's scary, and people should understand that these people and these positions of power and authority, whether it's Nevada, California, Florida, New York, until you get rid of them and make them pay the consequences, they're going to continue to inflict punishment and hurt on innocent people. Who all these people want to do is follow the rules and regulations and the laws as they are written, not for anybody else to reinterpret them or say, well, that's not what that law meant to be. I say this law meant to be this. And that's exactly what happened. Your Larry Hicks dismissed it, even though you had everything lined up. You go, hey, I got all my ducks in a row, right? You thought you had all your ducks in a row, didn't you?
Hell, I paid an attorney $35,000.
$35,000. And again, now you bring up a different topic, attorneys. 9.99999 times out of 10, most attorneys are worthless. Okay? They are worthless. They don't care about defending you to the best of their abilities. Their allegiance is to, in order of appearance, to the bar, to the Nevada State Bar, American Bar Association. That's, again, bar, British Accredited Registry. It comes from England. Enough said there. So the bar. Then their second allegiance is to the court, which means the judge. Their third allegiance is to you. So you're third, you're third coming out of the gate. You're not going to win. It's better to go pro se litigant, but then again, you go into a court and you go up against a judge who's corrupt, like Barry Breslow, and like other judges. Well, you can throw in Larry Hicks too in your case, and they tear you to pieces. Like, well, you should be represented by counsel, and you don't know what you're talking about. You're up. I mean, Breslow said to me, "You're up against a very experienced prosecutor." Yeah, but when I was a cop, I used to eat attorneys for breakfast on the stand. That was my favorite part of being a law enforcement officer. Go up there and prove your case. Because you can arrest everybody in the world. You can write as many speeding tickets as you want. But until you're bona fide in courtroom testimony, it doesn't mean anything. Because where does it go? If you keep getting everything thrown out and dismissed, what good are you? You can go out and write 1,000 tickets a day. You can arrest every criminal in the world. But if you can't win in court, then it's all for naught. And I prided myself on being able to win in court and some of these judges were good, and some were fair, and some were really bad that I was involved in their courts. And so I prided myself, and I'll pat myself a little bit on the back here. I don't like to do that. But at the end of my career, my conviction rate in every court case I've had, I did a computation, and my conviction rate was about 94%. 94.1 or 94.2, if I remember correctly. And I just did it for my own curiosity. And that showed to me that, hey, I was doing a good job out there. I wasn't arresting people I shouldn't be arresting. I wasn't ticketing people I shouldn't be ticketing. I wasn't doing bad police work. And a lot of cops these days are doing bad police work or no police work at all. But then again, you've got to say, well, do I hire an attorney? Do I go in on my own? And I'm telling everybody right now that it's better to be a pro se litigant and research and do your own homework yourself without paying an attorney. Like you said, Drew, you paid $35,000. I had an attorney in my former criminal case, was paid $75,000 to take her from start to finish, and yet he never did a damn thing. I fired him. I got rid of him. It's amazing that people still think that they need an attorney The judges are going to do the right thing. The cops are going to do the right thing. And these attorneys are going to help in case the cops don't do the right thing. And now it's all a fallacy. It's all fact-based lies. The best way for you to defend yourself in any type of action, whether it's civil or criminal, is to represent yourself. But learn how to represent yourself. And it's really easy. There's a lot of stuff out there on the various websites that you can educate yourself to become the person who can represent you is you, instead of an attorney that you pay a whole bunch of money to that won't do their damn jobs. Because again, their allegiance is to the bar, the court, and then to you. And like, oh, I have horror stories of people 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 75,000, hundreds of $1,000s. And what did the attorney do? Lost the case or didn't properly represent them, because you're screwed from the get-go. And people need to understand that. And then again, I hope that I've shed some more light on the situation involving the corruption in Reno. It's the biggest little city in the world. It's the biggest little corruption city in the world. There's a lot of dark and dangerous stuff in that city, and it continues to proliferate. And I could have lived there the rest of my life, but I didn't want to be subjected to more retaliation from my enemies who wanted me dead and buried, literally dead and buried.
It's crazy. You go from law enforcement to where you are now.
Yeah, and again, I am 30 years, and now I'm a convicted felon. Why? Because of dirty cops, dirty attorneys, and dirty judges. I thank my parents from a different realm that the day I was arrested at gunpoint, I wasn't killed. When I was arrested a second time outside of Elko, Nevada, by 15 cop cars. Overkill.
Look, explain to everybody why you got arrested. They may not know. Give a real short story.
I don't really know to this day why I was arrested. Well, I tell you why I was arrested. I was arrested because I pissed off the wrong people by exposing corruption. I assisted a friend of mine getting his mother out of assisted care facility because she was being abused and neglected. And then the cops turned around and says, well, Mr. Hilligus kidnapped his mother. And I laughed in Oliver Miller's face. He's a dirty cop, by the way, from Reno Police Department. And I says, oh, did you just hear what you said? How does a son get accused of kidnapping his own mother? Well, you have legal authority. And now we get into the whole guardian probate situation. Guardianship, first of all, for those that don't understand this, is a legal entity. Illegal, okay? But there's money involved. Follow the money train. It's all about the money. It's always been about the money. It always will be about the money until we stop the corruption. So I was arrested for kidnapping and assisted kidnapping. The cops lied in their police reports. Everybody lied about everything. Why? Because it involved money. Susan Hilligus was giving this facility, Stone Valley, $8,500 a month. That's just one person. That facility had over 200 people in it. Do the math.
Crazy.
And so I was arrested because I was there, but I never did anything wrong. The cops said I lied on the sign-in sheet. All these cops lied. Allison Jenkins, Klodowski lied. The chief of the Reno Police Department, Dan Jason Soto, all these cops are no good. But they were told what to do by other people. Hopefully one day we'll find out who these other people are. So that's what happened. And because of this heinous act against myself, I lost everything, lost my marriage, lost my house. And I'm not here for a pity party because I don't do that. But this is what can happen to people when you cross the wrong people in Reno, when you stand up to the corruption, when you stand for truth and justice, as I did for 30 years, this is what can happen to you because you pissed off the wrong people and you brought bad light on the wrong people. And that goes back to when I was a federal whistleblower against my own department in 2001 against Richard Kirkland. It all has ties. It's all connected. All these people are in cahoots with one another, and people like, I don't get it. I go, look, all you got to do is pull up some of the movies in Hollywood. They're showing you what's going on. I mean, we can go back to Serpico, okay, about the cop that stood up against the corruption in his own department with Al Pacino, 72, I believe, was when the movie came out. So I was arrested and charged. And then I thought, well, hell, we got a chance with the jury until Judge Brezel impaneled an anonymous jury, which is only used in organized crime. And so I knew the handwriting on the wall. If we had gone into an anonymous jury, because they handpicked a jury, Christopher Hicks is corrupt. He's involved. Amos Steggy, another corrupt piece of garbage. I knew in the back of my head, I go, if we go into this anonymous jury, what's going to happen is simple. We're going to be found guilty, remanded into custody, and be transported to Nevada State Prison. You know what happens to cops in prison? When I was arrested for not having a GPS monitor device attached to my leg, I spent 4 months in the Washington County Jail. I was treated like shit, except for a few deputies. I'm not going to mention their names, but there was a few deputies in there that treated me decent. The rest of them treated me like shit. Darren Balaam is another corruption chip off the old block from his dad. And so I spent 4 months in isolation in infirmary, locked down 23 out of 24 hours a day. And I don't want anybody to ever have to do that, and innocent people being in jail. But I was stuck in jail for 4 months because I failed to put on a GPS tracking device, which, by the way, are legal under the United States Supreme Court decision, Torrey Grady versus North Carolina, 2015, where the legal search and seizure of a person's body. Isn't it an odd thing now we have the Department of Alternative Sentencing out of Washoe County, which then basically just no longer exists because the chief was doing the exact same thing, excuse me, in Clark County. And now all these federal agencies are investigating this. Because
that's a whole other thing we're bringing up here.
We can talk about another day. But I'm telling you something. That right there in itself, they told me I had to pay them $3,200. And I said, I'm not paying you a damn cent because this thing's illegal. And everybody's listening out there that knows someone has a GPS tracking device, not the scram monitor for alcohol, but the tracking device. Those are illegal. Look it up.
So for anybody that most people probably watch and don't know, but in Washoe County, the chief of the alternative sentencing department, the guy that
Justin
puts the
Roper
ankle monitors on you, that drug tests you, that tracks your whereabouts when you're not locked in a jail cell. He recently resigned? Did he get fired? He
resigned under investigation. He quit before the hammer fell on him. Yeah.
But basically, this guy that was running this program, strapping these ankle monitors to people, charging them a whole bunch of money working for the government as a government paid employee, also just happens to own a private company down in Las Vegas in Clark County.
Can't make this
where
stuff
he
up.
does the same thing, except he does it for profit for himself.
Yeah. Talk about double dipping and conflict of interest up the wazoo. And this guy thought he could get away with it. Again, delusions of grandeur with the people involved at these heads of these agencies. And now and all the money's coming from this Washington County Department of Alternative Sentencing, which I was under the guise of when I was awaiting trial. We're talking a lot of money. I mean, people have to pay for the drug testing and the alcohol testing and the monitors and all this stuff. That's a lot of money based on the fact that the courts get a chunk of the change. So again, we're talking corruption from this agency in direct to the court systems, whether it's the Second Judicial District Court, which I've already said is corrupt, or the Reno Justice Court, which I know is corrupt, or the Sparks Justice Court, or the Muni courts, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Somebody's getting money here. And it's amazing that that people just go, what's going on here, folks? What's going on here with this Department of Alternative Sentencing? And I'm telling you right now, the Second Judicial District Court uses them significantly, or did use them significantly, and the fines and the penalties attached by their rulings. Again, every ruling out of that court, folks, listen to me, please, is invalid because none of them have, and this is information under FOIA request, none of them have bonds as required by state law. None of them have valid oaths of office or recorded valid recorded oaths of office or commissions. And therefore, under Nevada law, they're considered invalid. But you ask the Attorney General to do something, who's a convicted felon from Texas, that's Mr. Aaron Ford, or Governor Lombardo to do something. He's the one that covered up the Route 91 concert. They don't do nothing. So what do? We keep exposing these people, Drew, by people such as yourselves and others who want the truth out there. And you brought up the whole Department of Alternative Sentencing. I wonder what's going on there now. Is everybody that's been being monitored for drug and alcohol testing or any other monitor aspects of that agency, what are they doing now? footloose and fancy free? Did anybody else step in? Is Chief Roper going to be prosecuted for misappropriation of money? Is he going to be
Well, his
held
business
criminally?
in Las Vegas, as I'm looking it up here, is Sober Testing Services Las Vegas. That's the business that this chief of Washoe County's alternative sentencing, that's what he owned. So let's pull it up here. So let me
Does
share that
anybody
with
else?
everybody.
I know you and I see a huge problem with that. I'm sure other people might see a huge problem with that. I mean, my God, this is insanity at its
So
finest.
Justin Roper right here, owner of Sober Testing Services. Here's Justin Roper right here, the chief of the alternative sentencing. So in Washoe County, in the northern part of the state, he's collecting the money from the government. And in the southern part of the state, he's got his own business doing the same thing, basically. And is he work? You know, if he was working with the government down there with this program too?
I don't know. Good question. Maybe we leave that for the next podcast. I'll dig more into that because I like to dig because I'm sick and tired of dirty cops. I'm sick and tired of dirty attorneys. I'm sick and tired of dirty judges. And I'll be damned to hell. And I know my parents are very upset over the fact that their son was treated the way he was treated by the entities I just described and subjugated to becoming a convicted felon and losing my right to vote and losing my firearms, which I used to carry for 30 years, and being vilified across the country for crimes I did not commit, and being labeled as a dirty cop or a bad cop, when in fact the people that did the labeling are the dirty ones. So we could dig into Mr. Roper a little bit more. I'm actually very intrigued by that whole aspect. There's more to that. There's a bigger piece of the iceberg underneath the water that needs to be exposed on that one.
In my opinion, there's a whole bunch of money going to all these government employees.
True.
And then they go and they do a bunch of side jobs and side things to go generate a whole lot more money for themselves. All while the taxpayers are paying them to do a full-time job for the taxpayers.
The taxpayers need to be reimbursed, just like you need being reimbursed for all the monies that you shelled out and your atrocities. And again, this is why your podcast is so important, because
it's not only me on my point for my issues. My point for the $25 fee is that's tax to the people. It's not really my money. It's the people pay their insurance companies, or the people pay to go pick up their own cars when they get impounded themselves, and they're paying this $25 fee. And the legislature never legislated it, never approved it. The governor never signed it to become a regulation, which is a different process. That process was never followed. Simply what happened is Sheriff Governor Lombardo now signed a contract with his out-of-state corporation and then went to the Transportation Authority that created an ad hoc rule, which is a fake regulation. And then they forced everybody to pay this company money. They wouldn't get any more business. And if you don't give them their money, then you don't get the business, and then you lose money, which forces the insurance companies to pay the fees, which means every person in Nevada that's buying insurance for their cars is paying this $25 fee, whether they think they are or not, because it's going into their insurance rates. So my issue is taxation without representation.
Yeah, exactly.
Why did we have the Revolutionary War in the first place? There was a Boston Tea Party because the people didn't like taxes. So here we are, 250 years later almost, and we got taxation without representation again, all because a sheriff decided to go sign a contract with a private company. Why would he sign a contract? He's not getting a kickback, is he?
Is he?
He's just doing it for the good of the people.
Right. Boy, if you believe that, I got some swampland in Florida to sell you. That's why I wear the 1776 shirt today, Drew, because that's exactly why the colonists left Britain, because taxation without representation, tyranny, et cetera, et cetera. And then Britain reaches out and says, oh, wait a minute, we still want some of this. And that's, of course, the Revolutionary War and the War of 1812. And again, I say that a little while back, the Bar Association, British Accredited Registry. Why would we do anything remotely associated with the Brits who tried to keep us under their rule of the monarchy? You just said a minute. Well, he's not getting a kickback, is he? Is he getting a kickback?
I don't know.
Wow,
I just ask questions. That's all I do.
Well, you know, and Columbo solved a lot of crimes at the end of his shows by saying, "Hey, I got one more question. I got one more question. Just got one more question." Everybody who watched Columbo knew at the end that Peter Falk was going to solve the crime by asking more questions. And that's what the public needs to do. Ask more questions. When something doesn't look right and something doesn't sound right, it ain't right. But if it looks right and doesn't sound right, or sounds right but doesn't look right, it's up to you to figure out through your own logic and deductive reasoning, is it right or is it wrong? And everything we've talked about this morning is wrong. The wrong situation involving a person getting mowed down in a crosswalk, and a guy that does it, who's got a lengthy driving record, is not arrested on the spot, but yet then is after almost a year, everything presto changeo. Oh, he's going to plead guilty to this charge of dropping everything else, and he only does 30 days in jail and slapped with a measly fine and some other bullshit stuff for killing someone in a marked crosswalk with a large vehicle.
Well, there's that. This guy was a federal judge, and the guy gets a 30-day sentence for killing a federal judge.
Yeah.
So he murdered a federal judge, whether it was.
It's willful and wanton right there. You can't say it was quote unquote. It's an accident. They charged him with reckless driving. If you read the statute on reckless driving, felony reckless, willful and wanton. So you willfully and wantonly disregarded the safety of a person by going through a crosswalk. Whether you had a blind spot up your wazoo, it doesn't matter. Again, I said this because you got to know your vehicle. If you're not that comfortable with the vehicle, then don't drive that vehicle.
But think about this. There was a guy in Incline Village that killed somebody, and they did a $100,000 bail for him. And then there was another guy out in Cold Springs out there, I believe.
10 million.
He was involved in the death of a child.
Yeah.
Now death is horrible regardless. You got a death of a child in Cold Springs, Nevada, Reno, Nevada. You got a homicide up in Incline Village. And then you got this guy that killed the federal judge. Guy that kills the federal judge gets a 30-day sentence.
Yeah.
Guy in Incline Village, he hasn't been convicted yet, but he gets a $100,000 bail. And then the guy in Cold Springs, I don't remember if it's $1 million or 10 million. It's
10
some
million.
astronomical bail.
Yeah.
$10 million bail. So why does one guy get a $10 million bail, one guy get a $100,000 bail, and the guy that kills the federal judge gets 30 days in jail?
Because you have disparities in the true implementation of justice, and you have incompetent, inept people that really don't know what the hell they're doing, and they just throws a dart at a dartboard and say, "Well, that's okay. That sounds good." This is why the public has no faith in the legal system anymore, nor should they, for that matter. It's that bad, and I'm hoping in the months to come that this country and the fair people of this country see a realization that this legal system, for all intents and purposes, cannot continue to operate the way it is. It has to be restructured, dismantled, restructured to make the public feel safe again, that they have faith in the legal system. Because right now, if anybody tells me, "Oh, I got faith in the legal system," I say, "You're out of your mind. You're really out of your mind. You should sit down and I'll tell you some stories that'll raise the hair in the back of your neck." And Drew, you're a victim of it. I'm a victim of it. So many people out there are victims of this corrupt legal entity called our legal system. And again, we're specifically talking this morning about Reno, Nevada, Washington County, and the state, which victimized you, victimized me, victimized Roger Hilligus, victimized so many other people. I've talked to the mother of Sierra Ceccarelli, who was murdered by her boyfriend. Here's a little interesting tidbit. Did you know that Robert Paul Eichelberger and Christopher Hicks are cousins? Yeah, I didn't know that. I was told that by the mom. And the case is in front of the Nevada Supreme Court right now. And I'm not going to bring her name into it because she's afraid. And she has the right to be afraid because it's so bad about this. This guy murders his girlfriend in 2014 and he's walking the streets of Reno. As you as a father, would you feel okay with that? I can guarantee you I wouldn't. I would get down to street justice. And
the whole system is just corrupt. There's no
corrupt.
Equal justice. Lady
there
justice
no
ain't
justice.
blind, the blindfold's off.
There is no justice out there, Drew. And people think there is. I think both of us are here to tell you, folks, today, there isn't. And it's really atrocious. And I'm sorry to bring people down on a Sunday morning, but the truth has to be out there, and you're the purveyor of truth, and you have many podcast videos out there that show exactly what's going on. And I applaud you for your efforts, and I really appreciate the fact that you allowed me to come in here and speak, because I'm not done talking, as you and I have talked about. I'm not done talking. I got lots more to say. And
yeah, we'll talk some more about it. For now, I got to get moving. I got to go
all right.
to work
Well,
today and
listen,
do some
brother,
other
thank
stuff.
you very much. You and your family enjoy your day. Thank you for everybody that's listening in. And please understand that Mr. Rebar is trying to expose this stuff as proficiently as he can. And again, I applaud your efforts, Drew. I'm glad we're friends. Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Stu.
Have a great day.
Everybody, thanks for watching. If you like what I do, do the little thumbs up, do the little subscribe thing, share it around, spread the news. It takes everybody to make changes in our system, and we, the people, should be served by our government. We shouldn't be serving the government. That's my view. So I'm going to turn this live stream off, and you all have a great day.
Thank you, sir. Take care.